See you all here, and thank you to all of those who participated in our special opening tonight. If I could begin tonight's meeting with a statement of acknowledgement. We acknowledge the traditional owners of the land in which we are meeting. We pay our respects to their elders and to elders from other communities who may be here today. Do we have any apologies or requests for leave of absence? I don't think so. None. Any declarations under the Act?
Madam Mayor and councillors, audio, video and still image recording of council meetings. Persons are required the council's meeting procedure local law prohibits the use of audio, video or still image recording devices unless prior approval has been given by the chairperson or by council.
Thank you, CEO.
Madam Mayor, I think I do special meeting next week. Is that correct?
Yes, you will have a leave of absence.
Can I have a leave of absence? Next week,
Thank you. Councillor Bennett, correct. Well done for picking that up, otherwise we would have had to excuse you next week. I hope you have a lovely holiday. Declarations by councillors of conflict of interest. I think, Councillor Mildren, you have a couple tonight.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Items 8.1 in regard to Central Place, item 8.6, Planning Scheme Amendment C125, and item 9.3 of the Building Report. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Will you give me a little reminder tonight? Is there any others? No, thank you. Councillors, item 6 is confirmation of minutes of the previous meeting. The recommendation is there on page 4. Can I have someone move that? Thank you, Councillor Watson. Thank you, Councillor Quilty. Councillor Watson, any comment? Councillor Quilty. Other councillors? Councillors, motion is there before us. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried. Item 7 is delegates' report, of which there is nil. Item 8.1 is the road name Central Place. Councillor Mildren.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a conflict of interest on this because my company has worked on the Central Place project in the past.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Just a few words on this one. So I'm Council's representative on the Place Naming Committee, and we have a member of the Place Naming Committee in the audience as well. I just wanted to quickly highlight, so when we went out for public exhibition, we received 3 official comments back. So 2 were against, and 1 was really just saying, just make sure you check the history, and the other one was for. Probably what is one of the most important things on this one is the Hall family are in full support of this one. So many years ago when we did the realignment of Elgin Boulevard and changed that name, so the Hall family has been waiting for the past, quite a few years on this one. So they're really supportive of this. So I think that's what's really important here. Also, so it is called Bond, and that's not named after a family. There was a stall there called Bond Store, so that's why it's named that way. And the P&C, the Place Naming Committee, would be supporting putting a plaque there that commemorates that.
Yes, I support the council recommendation. I note that submitted to made some good valid points about the history of the local area and the naming behind Bond Street. But having said that, I also recognise Jack Hall's contribution to Wodonga's local history and the commitment the council made to the Hall family some years back. Wodonga Council, and I believe most of the Wodonga community, would want us to honour that commitment. It really is, in the scheme of things, a very small way of recognising our history as well as saying thank you to Jack Hall and his family.
Go to Councillor Bennett. If I could just make a quick thank you. We've had consecutive committees actually look at this. This has been a long time coming, and also a huge thank you to the family for their patience. One of the things that we made sure as we went through this process, though, as the CEO and I worked with Development Victoria, was that we ensured that we represented that history, particularly down what will be a relatively access way through into that new development. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that's exhibited, how we can exhibit history in a public art form that tells our story and is representative and respectful of the family. So, Councillor Bennett, could you please pass our thanks back to the Road Names Committee? Thank you. Over to you for close. No further comments, councillors. Motion is there before us. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried. Can we have Councillor Mildren back, please? I think we need a buzzer in there. Thank you. Item 8.2 is the Wodonga Gold Cup up for discussion. The recommendation is there on page 16. Now, councillors, do I have a mover? I believe there was an alternate motion. Councillor Watson, would you please turn your microphone on and read that out?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to change what the officer's recommendation is to a recommendation of 3 years. Point 1, that Racing Wodonga be advised of the Council's support for a 3-year extension of the Wodonga Gold Cup public holiday until 2021. And point 2, a request be made that the Minister declare that point A, November 5, 2019, November 3, 2020 and November 2, 2021 are not public holidays in the municipal city of Wodonga, in the municipal district of Wodonga City, and point B is November 29, 2009, November 2007, November 27, 2020 and November 26, 21 are appointed as public holidays in the municipal district of Wodonga to coincide with Wodonga Gold Cup.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Watson, sorry, Councillor Bennett.
Yes, I have an alternative motion if that one doesn't get up.
Thank you. Councillor Watson, over to you for discussion.
Madam Mayor, thank you for the ability to put forward the motion. In moving this motion, which I was involved with the original motion to obtain a Gold Cup holiday for the city of Wodonga, I believe in that earlier time we didn't have a lot of data, and now having that Gold Cup, we've increased numbers from a small number up to something like 8,000 people attending. It's not just about racing and alcohol, and it's about networking and really a social day for our city. We don't have many calendar events that we can use for our community to come out and celebrate, but also for our business houses leading up to it, accommodation, beautician, there's a whole number of things that our city can use the public holiday for. Not only that, the community can use that day for having Christmas parties and things like that for the timing of the year of when it is held. So I would like to probably then leave it to my close for final points.
All right, I'm speaking in favour of the motion to extend the public holiday for another 3 years. So let me start by saying I think we've all been paying close attention to the views of the community on this issue, and it's probably fair to say that it's at least 2 to 1 against keeping the public holiday on the Gold Cup day. Certainly in my conversations it's been about 2 to 1. Facebook poll might have been slightly higher. For whatever reason, Melbourne Cup holiday seems to be preferred. So I've followed the feedback on Kat's poll and the Board of Mail's less popular poll as well. I don't have a personal stake in this. I'm not much of a fan of racing, and I work in New South Wales, so I'm not going to get a public holiday anyway, although I do have to take time off to look after the kids because the school is on holidays here. Either way. But I'm also not overly sold on the economic figures that we've been presented. I don't have a lot of faith in that kind of figuring, the way they work it out. But having said all that, the Cup is clearly growing in popularity, developing as a local event, and I worry that if we remove the public holiday, we're going to chop it off at the legs. And I think it needs a little bit longer to get established and build momentum. So that's why I support giving it another 3 years. Otherwise, attendance is going to drop away. Also, for what it's worth, I think it stamps a little independent space for Wodonga in the cultural landscape, or in some sort of landscape. We're not a suburb of Melbourne that has a really slow train to get there. We're our own community with our own identity, and I think the Gold Cup does something to establish that. Yeah, anyway, that's it.
I also am going to vote in favour of this motion tonight, and I'm voting in favour of the event. I'm not voting in favour of racing or alcohol consumption, as some have put it. If we're truly voting in favour of whether our events had alcohol or not, we probably wouldn't have Fridays on My Mind or the Food and Wine Festival. So I won't go into an alcohol debate or a gambling debate tonight. But what I will do is look at the economic impact statement, and the sort of figures that have come to us. I'm going to read them out. And I acknowledge that whoever commissions economic impact statements will generally get numbers in their favour. So you can draw whatever you like from data. But what I did was looked at these numbers, and I'll read them out. 2017 total attendance was 8,059 people. That was 15% up on 2016, and a whopping 241% up on 2013. In 2017, it generated $2.3 million spend in Wodonga, and that was up 16.1% on 2016. 2017, the new money generated for Wodonga was 1.04 million, plus 22.7% on 2016. The Wodonga Gold Cup in 2017 employed 110 casuals, a growth of 323% since 2013, with new prize money of $298,000. When I started campaigning and running for council, a lot of talk around town was, what can we do to grow events? We need more events. We need to establish ourselves with events. By having a public holiday to create event, whilst it's probably not ideal on the business community, what it does is give an event a grounds for establishment. And that's basically what I'm supporting right now, is getting a footprint on this event market with this particular race day. People will argue that it's only a public holiday here in Wodonga, and how does that draw people from the outside? Well, the Melbourne Cup was only a metro holiday up until not all that long ago, and then it became a statewide holiday. So the event itself, if it gets big enough and gets enough traction, will start creating tourism. What the race club's job is to turn those one-day overnight stays into two-night stays. So that starts to have a broader reach for our business community. So it's not just about eateries and bars and things like that, but they can't be the only ones that benefit from this. We need a bigger broadening reach, and that means we need people to stay for longer. To test some of the data, I went to the only data that I know was true and reasonable. So I went and checked the figures that I've got access to, and that's a couple of retail stores in Albury. The first year they had the public holiday, we've seen a 30% increase. So that was money coming, probably is normal. Whenever Victoria has a public holiday, the money goes over to Albury. That's what people do, they go shopping. But what I've seen happening over the last few years is that is gone back and back and less, and now we're trading the exact same figures we were on the first day, which means to me that the event is growing. So it's doing exactly what it was designed to do. The public holiday is designed to grow. What we can't measure at the moment and it's only anecdotal, was what effect it's having on our smaller businesses around town. Now, some of the smaller businesses are embracing it, they're using it for social club events, but it is a cost and a burden on business, there's no doubt about that. What we need to try to do is minimise that, and how best do we use that. I've kind of thought about this in the sense that we can all sit here and say, you know, they can use it for social clubs and they can use it for this, and that's fine for us to say, but we're not the ones paying their bills. But what we do is try to minimise it, and I think, John, you said something about, or Tim, something about it's a social day on our calendars, something for our community. You know, we've got businesses, people argue it should be on Melbourne Cup Day. What we forget about on Melbourne Cup Day is people take the Monday off with sick days. That's a cost on business. They take the Wednesday off with sick days. That's a cost on business. So whilst we get into the economic impact statements, there's still a lot of unknown, but I'm here to support the event because I think Wodonga needs the event. Thank you.
Maybe after.
I support the Wodonga Gold Cup. However, I don't see that there is social and economic justification for gazetting a public holiday. A number of factors have informed my view. One of these factors relates back to what I've heard from the community. I don't think there's been adequate community engagement on this proposal, particularly within the broader business community. In order for me to get a better understanding of how the community felt on this issue, I posted a poll on my councillor Facebook page and my LinkedIn account. Again, I stressed, like I did on my Facebook poll, that consultation was not official Wodonga Council consultation, it was just me as an individual councillor asking for some feedback. There was a huge and rapid response to this poll. So 1,314 people voted, 88 people shared the poll, and there are hundreds of comments. Facebook Analytics tells me a few things about this, that the majority of the people who engaged with that poll hadn't liked my councillor Facebook page, and they were from Wodonga. You'll also see from the hundreds of comments that the vast majority of people commenting were Wodonga people. For example, things like, I own a small business in Wodonga, or I work in a large workplace in Wodonga. So 1,314 people voting far exceeds the average number of responses Wodonga Council normally receives when it consults on a community-wide survey. Evidence that this is a really important issue for our community and one that our community really wants to be heard about. In the officer's report in our agenda indicates that Wodonga people are spending about over $1 million on this event. But from the majority of feedback I was receiving from local businesses, they weren't seeing this spending. In fact, the majority of these businesses actually said that they were losing an amount, a possible revenue, due to the public holiday. Given the crux of the argument for gazetting a public holiday revolves around the economic benefits to the Wodonga community, I sought clarification from Wodonga Racing for a more exact breakdown on this figure. I was told that about 25% is on-course spending, which includes alcohol, and about 74% is related to other things like tourism activities, accommodation, retail and transport. Again, the majority of local businesses who have expressed their opinion to me are quite adamant that they're not seeing these economic benefits. And further, something I learnt from this engagement is that Friday seems to be the most lucrative retail day, so therefore having a public holiday on a Friday further disadvantages them. Another point that came through loud and clear relates to the confusion and inconvenience for businesses and parents of school-age kids. For example, for businesses that have a regional or national presence, like where I work, so we have an office in Wodonga, Wangaratta and Myrtleford, it causes confusion. It means for a few days of the month we're operating, we're operating at half capacity. For school parents, there is confusion around bus timetables, parents having to take leave because their child has a different day off than they do. And lastly, I'd like to highlight an issue that was raised repeatedly to me in community feedback. And this relates to an issue of having a public holiday for an event that has a major alcohol and gambling component. In the data in our municipal public health and wellbeing plan, it clearly shows that alcohol is a major problem in Wodonga. For example, compared to the rest of Victoria, Wodonga has a much higher incidence of alcohol-related injury and violence. And Wodonga has more than twice the Victorian average of serious road injuries involving alcohol. Wodonga Council has just accepted a grant from Vic Health, and we're doing some really fantastic work with our workplaces around prevention for alcohol harm. So I do question the validity of Wodonga Council supporting a public holiday for an event that does have a significant component related to alcohol. So therefore, for social and economic reasons, I don't think there is justification for Council to support gazetting a public holiday.
I agree with everything that you've said, Kat, and I'll add a little bit more from my side. I recognise Wodonga Cup is a well-run event and that it is a credit to the organisers. Many in the community support having a public holiday to attend the Gold Cup, and I recognise this, and that is why it has been such a hard decision as a councillor to make. But there are equally as many who do not support the public holiday for this event, if not possibly quite a lot more. And if you go by the 2 polls that were recently conducted, as Kat just mentioned before, that was substantially quite a bit more. But I will say that the polling isn't the reason behind my decision, only part of it. I must admit I've had issues with the Gold Cup requiring a holiday in Wodonga over and above the Melbourne Cup in years past. The Melbourne Cup, although it is run in Melbourne and could be said to have no real bearing for us locally, is a state and realistically a national event. People love the Melbourne Cup. They have regional local race meets, people organise events, or they take Mondays off, as Councillor Lowe said, and they possibly come up here for a holiday. So it makes a 4-day weekend. I believe the majority of the community don't want this day taken away from them. There are many who don't support horse racing at all for a range of different reasons. And I acknowledge that there are jobs and tourism benefits for the Wodonga Cup and what it creates in Wodonga, but there's still possibly could achieve this event if it were held on a weekend or possibly another state public holiday, where people from outside of Wodonga City could enjoy the Wodonga Cup because they're able to be able to come because they have the weekend off. There's people take short breaks for the Melbourne Cup break, and because it is a statewide holiday, families visit other areas of the state. So I see that's probably one of the reasons why people prefer to have the Melbourne Cup. It's in my view, it's not a decision about not supporting the Wodonga Cup, it's more about a decision about supporting the day of the public holiday. And I believe that the issues that it creates for local businesses, from what I've spoken to, quite substantial, and most of the businesses I've spoken to said there is a lot of issues for them financially, as well as people confusion not knowing whether shops are open or are closed. So for this reason, I don't support extending the public holiday past 2018.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Up front, my mind's very conflicted over this whole issue. When I see the information that was presented to support the public holiday for the Gold Cup, I was pretty disappointed because I don't think it made the link between what the Gold Cup is doing and what it's seeking to achieve and the need for the public holiday. So there was some problems there in my mind about how that was put together and the level of justification for the event to be supported by the public holiday. Having said that, the Gold Cup event is an absolutely wonderful event for Wodonga, and it should be supported and continue as best we can do it. I too have been, I've canvassed the views of the community, or numbers of the people in the community that I interact with, and overwhelmingly it's been to oppose the public holiday. But it's also overwhelmingly been that the event's a good event for Wodonga, so there's an element of conflict in that straight away. I've spoken to a number of businesses who use the Wodonga Cup event as a promotional day for their business. They hire space at the event, marquees or otherwise, and they invite clients and so on in and do marketing exercises for their businesses, and they consider the event to be very important in their business processes. I've also spoken to other business people who are adamant that it has an adverse impact on their business because there's an uncertainty about whether or not Wodonga's open for business on the day, and the people from outlying areas come to town and go straight to Albury. There's a whole range of impacts of that nature that other businesses just say it's a negative on their bottom line. I hear other people say they prefer Melbourne Cup because it's an opportunity to have an RDO on the Monday and a day off on the Tuesday and go bush and do all the things that many people like to do. It's also been said to me that that's a relatively recent phenomenon, and it's not that long ago that we didn't have a public holiday in regional Victoria for the Melbourne Cup anyway. I think that's probably not a relevant consideration in this process because we're seeking to apply a holiday irrespective. So either which way you look at it, we're looking to put a holiday in place. In terms of what I think should happen, I very strongly support the event continuing. I think it's important that we give it an opportunity to show its bona fides. I think it's beholding on the race club to do some things to lift the profile and to win over more of our community. I think if there's been a failing in what's been done to date, that's probably where it's been. I don't think the race club has actually gone out and marketed the event to the general public in the manner that perhaps it could have been, and to bring the rest of the community with it. I think there's a lot of work can be done in that regard. But overall, I think we have to give the opportunity for this event to continue to build it as a marketing exercise for our community and for our businesses. And I think for that reason, I'm supporting the motion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Well done, Councillor. I don't think I could guess till right to the very end. Councillors, if you'll just indulge me, I'll be very short. We've had 2 votes on this in the past with previous councils, and while I have looked at all of the new evidence, and indeed I think some of the points that were made by both Councillor Bennett and Councillor Lowe were exceptional, and they certainly highlighted the difficulty and the 2 sides, the 2 very strong sides and opposing sides of this argument. So thank you, both of you articulated those very well. Having said that, I, in the past, did not vote to support the public holiday, and I haven't had my mind changed on that, even given the new statistics. So there is no surprises there, councillors, been very upfront with that. Councillor Watson, to you for close.
Thanks, Madam Mayor, and I think Councillor Bennett was very impressed that I've been doing some research on Google and looking things up. So I do point out that Racing Wodonga is a business in our city and employs a lot of people, and you know, it is a 365 day of the year business that employs people and has events there apart from racing. I look at the website of Business Vic and a website where the Metropolitan Public Holidays for 2017, I just haven't got the latest update for 2018, but it's noted that all Victoria is entitled to a Melbourne Cup public holiday unless alternative local holiday has been arranged by non-metropolitan municipalities as listed below. And I would just like to read out other city councils in regional areas and Victoria that do swap their Melbourne Cup Day for their own special public holiday. And Moreton Shire, Warrnambool, Mildura, Yarra Yarra we go down to Hindmarsh, Latrobe City, we go to Golden Plains Shire, City of Greater Geelong, Moira Shire, Greater Bendigo City Council, Horsham Rural City Council, Latrobe City Council, Yarra Yarra back again. They have a Macedon Ranges, Golden Plains Shire, Hepburn Shire, City of Ballarat, and of course finishing up the end is City of Wodonga. And I think it's very important that we do celebrate to have a public holiday for our city when it suits us and not to. And I think what Councillor Lowe has talked about is that having it on Tuesday extends that drain on business anyway. So I hope that my fellow councillors follow in a positive way here, because keep in mind the City of Wodonga needs an event that it can keep building on, and I know that the Racing Victoria, not Racing Victoria, I'm sorry, Country Racing with Tom O'Connor, whatever we can do partnership to help them, they're always there to help us. So in the closing, we put the vote.
Councillors, thank you for your respectful commentary. Councillors, the motion is there as read out by Councillor Watson with the 3-year component. Councillors, all those in favour? All those against? Motion is carried. Councillors, item 8.3 is the review of the instruments of delegation. The recommendation is there on page 33. Can I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Lowe. Seconder. Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Councillor Lowe, comments?
Yes, look, this is just to sort of streamline processes and make sure that we're not in meetings that go for 24 hours. So to make sure our staff have, you know, the authority to carry out some work, so we're not having to be here every single night of the week.
Councillors, if you'll just indulge me, this is part of a legislative process. You'll find that during any term you can do a number of these as legislation changes, and it is really important that we reflect the current legislation to ensure that we adopt the best practice and also what's legislatively required from us, from the state. So it is process steps. Councillor Lowe, back to you for any close. Nothing to close. Councillors, motion is there before us. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried. Item 8.4 is the March 2018 Quarterly Financial Report. Just give me a minute to get to the recommendation. It is there on page 47. Can I have a mover? Thanks, Councillor Quilty. Thank you, Councillor Watson. Thank you, Councillor Quilty. Any comments?
Right, I'll be brief. So one of the things coming out of this is we're now projecting a $1.2 million surplus. That's till 30 June 2018. For this quarter, we had a $721,000 increase in revenue and a $388,000 increase in expenditure over the previous quarter's revised budget. So that gave us another $333,000 to add to the surplus. Items of interest include the waste management figure coming in $100,000 under budget, which adds just a little bit extra on top of the already large surplus in waste fees, which I expect we'll see considerably more discussion about in this area going forward. In the capital budget, we've had $146,000 in extra revenue and $606 in new expenditure. Largely that was the retiling of the Waves pool, 500,000 odd. I'm still assured that our best estimate is that's all recoverable. I would like to think so. I think that's it. Yep.
Madam Mayor, I don't really have anything to say. Only to say that the lovely figure's been put together by our new officer in Narelle Keane, and I welcome her to our team. But she has been in the background for some time, but welcome to the team.
Councillors, if you just allow me, I think I'd like to pass on a well done to the CO and her team, and indeed to the new Director of Finance, Narelle. Welcome. Because when we look at our financial strength in these, the savings that have been made and the work that's been done to find those savings, CEO, through you and your team, you achieve that on our behalf and on our community's behalf. You know, when I also look at those figures, you know, something that I do note is that, you know, our borrowings are down by 40% over since the, over an 8-year period, and I think that is substantial, particularly given the growth and the delivery that we have seen for our community in our city, right across every section, not just in the CBD, but right into our local parks, into all of our roads, etc. So I think it is a huge feat, and a congratulations to your team is absolutely necessary. Councillor Quilty, over to you for any close. No, councillors, their motion is there before us on page 47. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried. Item 8.5 is the speed limit review, various locations. The recommendation is there on page 54. Thank you, Councillor Lowe. Thank you, Councillor Watson. Councillor Lowe.
Just briefly, it's just we're putting a couple of speed limit reviews out for public consultation. It's partly process, and it's a reduction in most speed limits. I have heard commentary around not putting all speed limits down, and I don't disagree with that comment. So I think if we ever get the opportunity to, I understand that slowing cars and speed down is good for safety, but I think in some instances, sometimes putting the speed limit up helps with traffic flow and that as well. But it doesn't relate to any of the ones that we're talking here, but be something to look for in the future.
Madam Mayor, I had a late phone call this afternoon from Peter DeCoya, who runs the Westmont aged care facility, and I have given him a message back. He was very concerned that it wasn't, but we do have slip lanes there. But remember, this is just going out for public consultation, and Westmont have the ability to put a submission in now. And I've informed, and because it's going live, he might be picking it up tonight, so he can rest assured that he can have a say, and it will be coming back to council before full approval.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. These changes, proposed changes, have all been through a process with the Traffic Liaison Committee, which involves relevant experts from Vic Roads and the police and other agencies, our council engineering staff and others. It's a fairly rigorous process that's gone through to get to this point, and there's sets of rules that apply to council. We just can't go and change things the way we might wish to. We have to apply the rules the way they're established, and the rigorous process that this has been put through is generally in compliance with what the state government rules are in terms of speed limits. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
All right, Danny stole a bit of my thunder already. As a matter of principle, I have big issues with lowering speed limits all the time. It just seems to be this ongoing ratcheting down, down, down. I never hear of proposals to raise the limits anywhere. Each decision can probably be justified on its own merits, but collectively I think we have a big problem. We're just trying to slow everybody down, and it costs time and it costs money. The Parkers Road Drages Road one in particular is going to end up annoying me. It's going to extend the agony of my morning running late struggle to get my son to school every morning. I'm going to be cursing councillors and their stupid speed limits. And yes, anyway, there was an email tonight about the speed limit on Feltimber Road saying that dropping it to 70 is not enough. I understand you struggle to get it lowered any further than that. Anyway, I'm not particularly in favour of it, but I am going to vote for it. I don't particularly like it.
Just quickly, Madam Mayor, there's a little bit that I wanted to read out on page 51 in relation to Councillor Quilty's time in the morning. So the effect of the proposed changes to travel times for each of the above proposals can be measured in seconds. However, the positive effect of improved safety for other road users is significant.
I'm a bit with Councillor Tim Quilty on this one, and Danny Lowe. Councillor Danny Lowe. Yeah, look, we always do seem to be dropping speed limits. I think some of them are dropped too far, and it does become tiresome. But Some of them are warranted. As this is a package, we have to vote for the package and not just one. I'll be interested to see if there's any feedback. I hope there is, and we'll see where that goes. Thank you.
Before I go to Councillor Lowe for close, you did move it, didn't you? Thank you. Councillors, I think that I'm looking forward to receiving feedback from the community on this, and I think, Councillor Mildren, your comments around the rigour that is put to these discussions by experts, I think is noteworthy. And the reality is, to get your family home safe, if somebody has to spend several more seconds in their car, I apologise to nobody. Councillors, I look forward to receiving that feedback. Over to you, Councillor Lowe, for close.
There's really nothing further to add besides picking up on, I thought Councillor Quilty was doing an infomercial for Coles there for a little bit with down, prices are down, but just, yeah, looking forward to the public consultation. Thank you.
Lowe, councillors, the motion is there before us. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried. Item 8.6 is the Wodonga Planning Scheme Amendment C125 for adoption. Councillor Mildred.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a indirect conflict because my company in the past has worked on similar related projects associated with North East Water and has worked for an adjoining municipality that has been consulted as part of the process.
Councillors, the recommendation is there on page 66. Can I have someone move that, please? Councillor Quilty. Thank you, Councillor Watson. Councillor Quilty. Councillor Watson.
Madam Mayor, it's just it's part of the process, and we've got to this stage, and yeah, it needs to be put through.
Councillors, motion is there before us. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried. Do you mind bringing Councillor Mildren back in, please? Item 9.1 is the finance report for March 2018. We have just had the quarterly report. This is the monthly report that we receive. Councillors, the recommendation is there on page 91. It's okay, Councillor Mildren, I'll let you get the page open, I promise. And can I have someone move that? Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Thank you, Councillor Quilty. Councillor Bennett, any comments? Councillor Quilty?
Not really. I have a note here that reads, nothing and stopped. So, no, sorry.
Motion is there before us. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried. Item 9.2 is the planning report. You don't have one on this? No. The recommendation is there on page 94. Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Have me a lovely smile. Thank you, Councillor Lowe. Councillor Bennett. Councillor Lowe. Other councillors? No? Councillor Bennett, over to you. No close. Thank you, councillors. Motion is, recommendation is there before us. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried. Mark, have you not got enough photographs yet? Seriously. You've got more than me mum. Okay, item 9.3 is the building report for March. That's you. Last one.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a direct interest in this one because I own one of the properties for which a building permit has been issued, which will be my home. Thank you.
I think that was deliberately left off, Councillor Lowe. Councillors, the building report recommendations there on page 98. Thank you, Councillor Lowe. Thank you, Councillor Hall. Councillor Lowe, any comments?
Just a couple of quick retail fit out, which is just showing faith in the business district, both in by Chemist Warehouse and also a tenancy fit out by Border Medical Laser Clinic. So another couple of businesses establishing themselves in Wodonga, which is great.
Councillors, I'll just make one, and I thought it was very interesting, but we're seeing that continued growth out at Killara and Barranduda. Clearly there's lots available out at those areas, but gee, we continue to see those areas just grow out of sight. I swear sometimes it's like when you drive out there, it's rained and there's more houses pop up. So good to see that continued growth of our city. Councillor Lowe, did you have any close? Councillors, the motion is there before us. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried. Would you bring Councillor Mildren back in? Thank you, Councillor Mildren. 9.4 is the Competitive Services Report for March. The recommendation is there on page 101. Oh, sure. That woke me up.
Madam Mayor and councillors, I just want to refer you please to page 100 where we need to correct some wording there under tenders not awarded. W1220-17Q feasibility study outdoor operation works depot. That next statement should read, the decision as to whether council renews the existing lease will be considered by councillors. So that is a report, councillors, that will be written by officers and will come to you for determination. So that decision has not been made.
Thank you. Okay, councillors. Now, thank you, Councillor Bennett. You look like you're ready to jump out of your seat for me. And Councillor Watson, you'll second that for me. Councillor Bennett, any commentary?
Yes, I've just got a question for our new officer client. Now, if you've been following the Competitive Services Report, you will have noticed my unwavering passion for the solar compact bins that are constantly under evaluation. So I've got two questions. Where are the beloved solar compact bins up to? And how long do things normally stay quotations under evaluation? When do they move through the cycle?
Through you, Madam Mayor. I've followed up to see where the solar bins are up to. Now, this particular tender was for two options, the option to lease the solar bins for a period of 5 years or the option to purchase. Now, this is a very small but competitive market. We received two tenders and we've had to go back to both tenderers on a number of occasions to make sure that we actually were comparing apples with both of their submissions. So that has taken us a little bit of time to work through and establish what the best option was for us, the cheapest option to purchase outright or to lease. The decision has been made to purchase outright. We will be acquiring two mobile solar bin units which can be used at the things like Children's Fair or other functions around the city, and there'll be two fixed units. And we're actually looking forward, we're in the final stages of finalising that, and by the time we come to the May meeting, I think you'll find that the tender has been awarded in this particular report for that item. So very exciting, watch this space. 1 more month.
Madam Mayor, only to make sure that footnote that the CEO has read out is noted for attention in the minutes.
Just one worthy of note is the contracts awarded to local suppliers is 92%. So keeping jobs and money local, which is great, and also the change room refurbishment at Wodonga Sports and Leisure Centre, which I frequent often. So it'd be good to have a good shower in there now. Look forward to it.
Thank you, Councillor Lowe, although that is not strictly true because you haven't been there for the last few days. Councillors, if you just mind me, and it's actually seeing ex-councillor Mulhood in the room before when we opened the new chamber, because she was very passionate about public toilets, so you've completely picked up the mantle. But really good to see the new rollout of toilets at Assumption Gardens. But I guess it gave me a little reminder to say we must be nearly at the end of that strategy, I would think. And we might need a new Minister for Public Toilets on board. I might dedicate that one to you, Councillor Bennett. But just it reminded me that we may need a new strategy, because I think we must have nearly delivered everything in it now. Thank you. Councillor Bennett, back to you for close. Councillors, the motion is there before us. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried. Item 9.5 is the Audit Committee meeting March 22nd, 2018, summary of the minutes. Councillor Quilty, would you like to move those? Yes? Yes. Seconder. Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Councillor Quilty, comment.
All right. The minutes are there for anyone to look at. The first up was the draft audit strategy. So the external auditors come in with the strategy, which is basically presented by VAGO, Victorian Auditor General's Office, possibly, to the Audit Committee. So they went through that, and the Audit Committee thought that was good, accepted it, as far as they have a choice to accept it. We got the findings from the procurement review. There were a few low and moderate risks involved. I don't think anything critical there. The purchase orders, but that's a recurring thing. The internal auditor thinks we should have purchase orders. We haven't adopted them yet. There was an issue. There wasn't a mandatory use of our system for ordering activities over 15,000. That's been addressed, so now they're going to do that, and some lower level issues. They went through then the next internal audit was event management. So we talked through the scope and objectives of that. Procurement exemptions register review, which is every time there has been a procurement over 100,000 that we don't put through a tender process, needs to be a specific exemption for that. So we've got the list. There's one new one going to be added to that, which is our electricity going forward, probably. Health compliance review, review of the investment policy and directives. We are investing ethically. 73% of our investments are in ethical funds. Is that right? Yes? Yep. Treasury report. We rolled over some money. Yep. Anyway, that's about it. So there was an audit committee report. We did review it. We talked at length. Yeah, all right.
I guess, Officer Klein, if there's any comments that you'd like to add, because I know that you've worked very hard with the internal audit committee as well. If there was anything else that you wanted to add to that commentary from Councillor Quilty.
Look, just I suppose, but for the benefit of the gallery, the audit committee is a really good process where we have external oversight of the controls and the processes that we go through with some of our procurement, our financial management, and our risk management. So from that perspective, it's a really robust and good way of providing assurance, and also just having that external set of eyes reviewing the processes that we've put in place to make sure that we're doing things the best way we possibly can and the most efficient way we can for a good outcome for the community.
And it's in addition to the legislative requirements from VAGO, from the other legislative oversight that we have.
I understand that we've got a legislative requirement to have an audit committee. So,
sorry, in addition to the audit committee, we also are legislative. We have other government bodies that effectively audit us.
Yep.
Thank you. Back to you, Councillor Quilty, for any close.
I might have missed the outstanding items register, which is a list of things from all the previous internal audits that haven't been addressed yet. We're closing them off about as fast as we are adding new ones, so the list isn't getting smaller, but they are working through them. Yeah. All right, that's it.
Thank you, Councillor Quilty. Councillors, motion is there before us. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried. Item 10.1 is assemblies of councillors, and this report is for information only. CEO, we are adding in our budget meetings into the next council meeting. You'll see those notes in there, councillors, where we've met. So we meet requirement. Item 10.2 is the status report on council meeting resolutions. The report is for information only again, unless there is anybody with any commentary. Item 11 is notices of motion, of which there is none. Petitions, of which there is none. 13, council seal, there is none. 14, urgent business, of which there is none. And that leads us to question time, and I do believe we have a first question in the chamber. Thank you. Kylie is in.
Yes, Madam Mayor and councillors, we have a question from Kylie Davison-Hull. Thank you, Kylie, for being here tonight. Kylie's question was, Madam Mayor and fellow councillors, is there a possibility of the council reviewing speed limits along Elgin Boulevard between Smythe and Mulqueeny Streets outside Wodonga Plaza? Recently, I had encountered a speeding motorist well over the speed limit as I attempted to cross the pedestrian crossing outside Aldi. The motorist refused to stop. This was mid-morning on a weekday. Currently, the speed limit is 50 k's along this section of road. If this could be lowered to 40, it would be appreciated. Failing that, is there any other alternatives available, like Vic Roads or police? Thank you, Kylie. The answer to your question I'll read out, and then I'll give you a copy before you go. The council has a role to play in determining speed limits across the city, as evidenced by one of the reports in tonight's agenda. The matter you raised has been referred to the Traffic Liaison Committee for consideration. The committee, Kylie, meets quarterly and comprises representatives from the council, Vic Roads, Vic Police, and Councillor Mildren is our representative on that committee. And the committee will next meet on Friday the 22nd of June, Kylie, so we'll make sure you get a response after that date. The second question is from Liam Patrick. Is Liam in the audience? He is. Thank you, Liam. Liam Shea, sorry, Liam. Liam's question is, will councillors and council staff be prepared to work with volunteers in order to implement a youth council for Wodonga to consult with council on youth matters? And I think, Liam, and through you, Madam Mayor and councillors, we'll take that on notice, and certainly councillors will consider your request and provide you with a written response.
Good question. Well done, Liam. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, councillors. Item 16 is confidential business, 17 confidential urgent business, of which there is none. That just leaves me to close tonight's meeting, and I guess just alert the gallery, there was an ad taken out on Saturday, I believe, and during this week, to notify our public that we actually have a special meeting next. Jim, you get to come twice in 1 month. Here you go. Into the new chamber. We've got a special meeting next Monday, the 23rd of April at 5 p.m. Not at 6, but at 5 p.m. So we would welcome everybody in the gallery. That just leaves me to ask everybody if you'd like to join us for a cup of tea. Thank you, councillors, for your commentary tonight and your hard work as always during the last month and in fact this week. So thank you, and please join us next door in our new foyer area.